Okay.
So New Year's was good?
New Year's was great. Went to Oregon, partied hard for a week.
Got to see some
They-
extended family. And
Yeah, my wife's family is a lot smaller. They just have her mom and dad and then her sister. And her sister has 1 kid, so it's 3 grandkids and then us, and that's it. So
smaller of a crew.
yeah, it's a different dynamic for sure, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, they're great. I love them. They fight a lot. Like there's 3 nights in a row that had almost the same fight.
Oh, man.
And it's like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. No, it's always a blast going up there. I love it.
That's how my wife's family is, too, where it's just such a different dynamic because there's way smaller
Yeah,
group of people, and they just they communicate very differently
way
than our
different.
family
Oh, yeah.
communicates.
No, it's funny because it's the 3 girls.
Right.
They go harder on each other than I've ever gone to anybody in our family. Like my dad's worse. Doesn't come close to what they'll do to each other. But I also don't think that any of us are as close or as loyal to each other as those 3 are to each other.
That's
They
funny.
are the closest
Tight knit.
and the craziest. Like they're just it's a different kind of communication than I'm used to begin with, which I mean any family's going to be different.
Right.
But yeah, it's really funny to watch them go
That's
because
fun.
they hit both extremes really, really hard. But
Right on. Yeah, it was pretty chill. Ours was, we missed you with the games and everything at Mom and Dad's house.
yeah,
We played some fun stuff. We played this game called Uno No Mercy. Have you played that?
I think so.
Instead of just draw 2s
Draw
and draw 4s,
fours.
there's draw 2, draw
Yeah.
4, draw 6, or draw 10.
Yeah, I think I
And man, Mom was just unleashing on Dad. She hit him with a draw 10 multiple times. And then we put my wife and Mom next to each other. So they started going at each other. And it was like, man, this is a brutal game. One game took us like 45 minutes to get through.
It's funny. I talked to my wife a lot before we started this,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of times that she's like, "Well, what do you think about?" Because she's like, "Well, what are you guys going to talk about?" It's like, "Oh, we're just going to talk about the truth." She goes, "Well, don't you think you should like know a little bit about like this? Like, would you talk about this?" It's like, "Yeah, I'll talk about that." She goes, "Well, don't you think you should know more about it?" It's like, "No, that's kind of the point. Like, we're just talking about
We're exploring it.
yeah, we're exploring it. Yeah, I don't have to if I want to wait to do the podcast until I know everything and like have a really good solid stance on everything, we're never going to start the podcast. There's never a conversation I can have that I'm not going to be a little bit over my or out of my depth on, you know what I mean? Like that's going to come eventually. But to me that's kind of the whole point of we all have our thoughts, we all have our positions of where we are right now.
Mhm.
Ideally, your position will change with more information you get. Who knows which direction that'll go, but you know, hopefully it changes as you learn. That's kind of the point of the podcast for me.
You shouldn't wait to engage until you're already sure on your position.
Yeah, because then I'm just then I'm just becoming a teacher,
A lecturer.
a lecturer. Yeah, I'm saying, hey, I've already got the answers. Here are my answers. That's
Right.
not necessarily what I understood this podcast to be or wanted this podcast to be. I want this to be. I'm looking for the answers. Let's talk about it. If you feel like you have more information, let's talk about it.
Kit, we were both watching that debate between Jacob Hansen and Joe, whatever his name is.
Yeah, I
took
forget
place
his
in the
name.
church.
Yep.
He's a Catholic representative, Catholic apologist.
Yep.
What did you think of that?
They were debating the great apostasy.
Yes.
Overall impression was whoever was talking, I agreed with.
Yeah, I know, right?
At any point in time, whoever was talking was like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's right. I think he's got the answer. And the next person got up. It's like, nah, this guy.
That makes sense too.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad that you worded it that way.
Okay.
Because when I listened to that debate, it was very similar to the next debate that I listened to. And what I'm realizing is like, imagine there's a, you know, when they say like you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I almost at this stage am seeing God so much bigger than these denominational boxes that we try to put him into. Where, yeah, maybe it is a square peg that you're trying to fit into a round hole, but that hole is so big,
It fits.
it does fit. It does fit. It doesn't fill it.
Yeah.
It's not
perfect.
It's not a perfect match, but it fits in there. You could say this square peg fits in this hole.
Yeah.
And then the next guy comes around with like an oval
He's
peg.
like, nah, see, it's an oval.
And he goes,
shape.
no, it's an oval hole because my oval peg fits inside of
Right.
it. And it's like, you're right. You guys both, what you're saying makes sense. I'm seeing why you think the way you think
Yeah.
because I'm seeing where you connect the dots. I personally think there's a little bit more to this story than what you are saying because you guys can't both be right. Either one of you is right or you're both wrong.
Yeah.
Unless there's just more to the story that takes your square peg and maybe not even rounds out your edges, maybe
Adds
just
more
adds those
to
little
it.
half circles on the four sides and turns it into a circle. And then with the round guy over here, there's a couple of crescent-shaped pieces of information you're missing, which would make it more of a round shape than an oval shape. And you guys, while you both are fitting inside the parameters of the whole, you're not filling the space. You're not getting the whole story. It's because Jacob did another, not even a debate, but a conversation with this other guy, and I cannot remember his name. He's another Christian apologist, and he's a fairly strong Protestant.
God Logic.
It's not God Logic.
Okay.
I'm very
I know they
excited
had
for
one.
that debate.
Yeah, I knew they had one.
That one I am waiting on with bated breath for.
Yeah.
But this other guy, I don't know him very well, but he's a Christian apologist, and they were talking specifically about the Trinity. And to hear a creedal Christian talk about the creedal Trinity teachings, and then to hear Jacob Hansen, who I've really begun to appreciate his interfaith dialogue and the way he's willing to be like, here's what I would say. Like, it's very much that meme, that Simpsons meme where Homer goes into the army and the drill sergeant's like, let's get something straight. I don't like you. You don't like me. And Homer's like, I like you. He's like, fine. You like me, but I don't like you. And Homer's like, maybe you would like me if you got to know me. And like that's Jacob for sure.
Yeah.
He's like, we could both possibly be right here. This both fits. And the guy's like, okay, fine. You could maybe get a bit my way, but I'm not willing to
Yeah.
give you the same thing. And they're very cordial about it. They're very civil about it. But I really appreciated his approach to it because he's like, we're not saying, like, if you're right, if the creedal Christian is right, I as a Mormon who rejected the Trinity am not saved. I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
Right? If you're right, I have to be wrong. If I'm right, you still get to go not to hell in the way that you're calling.
And
And
hate it. We're gonna get into this.
we are going to get into
We're
it.
gonna get
This is
into
a great
it.
transition. The way they're calling hell, we don't accept that. We reject that idea of hell.
Yes.
When they say you're not saved, you don't get to. They're saying you're going to a very unpleasant, very unhappy place. You missed your shot.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. The Mormons are saying if I'm right, and you
Almost
don't.
all the exact same thing.
The Mormons are saying if I'm right, you're probably still going to end up in the celestial kingdom, not just a lower tier, but celestial kingdom. You're going to miss out on the exaltation portion of it, and exaltation versus salvation is a nuanced conversation that I think Jacob has very well. And I don't want to put words in his mouth or try to recap what he says because he does it better than I do.
Yeah.
But he's saying you guys are still going to end up just fine. You're going to end up as happy as you possibly could be. And I think there's a way for you to be more happy, but you're going to be just fine at the end of all this.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting how these conversations are, Jacob's arguing with a square peg for the round hole, and the other guy's arguing with a star-shaped peg, and they both fit inside of the hole. Like when they both are making their points, they've got really good reasons for believing the way they believe. They can both back it up with scripture. It fits inside the parameters of the whole, but it's very interesting if you're coming from the LDS side and you listen to what they say, you go, dang, we're saying so much of the same stuff with different
100%.
terminology,
Yeah.
and I'm totally cool with you saying it the way you say it.
Yeah.
But then when it gets reversed and the other guy's like, well, I know you're wrong because you're a Mormon, and everybody knows Mormons are wrong.
Yeah.
So they're not willing to give that same, like, you know what, that does kind of fit within the parameters.
Actually does make a lot
We're
of sense.
using
Yeah.
different terminology, but we actually agree on it. Like
Yeah.
the conversation that Jacob had with the guy, he finally said something to the effect of like, okay, I can see that, or that makes sense. He finally gave one of
A
those
little
comments,
bit.
but then he immediately backed up and was like, and then he went right back to a point he'd made 10 minutes ago and was like, well, he was not willing to just say, we're talking about the same thing.
I do think there is a overcorrection from other religions to just not cede any ground to LDS because I don't even want to speak for why people feel the way they do about LDS, but for whatever reason, I think they're obviously, I don't think it's
There's something holding
controversial to
them
say
back.
there's something about the LDS that kind of rubs every denomination wrongly. I don't know what that is. But so there definitely is an overcorrection in that sense. I think what I appreciate about Jacob Hansen is when he does the conversations than when he does the debates.
Agreed.
Well, and this is my feelings on debates in general. Debates are always
About points.
Exactly. They always put it into that category of I can't cede a single point, even if you're going to say something that we all know that everyone agrees with, but I can't cede it because now we're in a
I
we're
can't
in a
get that
battle.
sound
If I
clip.
give you, yeah, I can't give that sound clip. I can't give you this point because you might have more points at the end of this, and people will think you're right when I know that at the end of the day I'm right, even though you're right about this one point. It's like, no, let's just say that point. Yes, that one point.
Sure.
You're right on.
Sure.
Like it might not change the overall battle, the overall war, but
It
yeah,
never
that
does.
battle.
It never does.
You're right on that one. Man, I'm trying to remember what it was that Andrew Wilson was just doing a debate. Oh, the one that I had sent you. There's a LDS member debating Andrew Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of those. Andrew Wilson comes out the gate, setting up the parallel. He goes, I've been visited by an angel named Macaroni. You know, what I mean,
Oh,
he's
yeah,
being
yeah,
crazy with
yeah.
it, but he's doing that thing. He goes, can you prove that I wasn't?
Right.
And the guy's like, ugh, yeah. Like, no, you can't. You can't prove that it wasn't. Like, I get that you don't want to say that because then he's going to say, well, that's Joseph Smith and no
Right.
one can prove that. But it's like that. Just because you can't prove that he didn't do it doesn't mean that Joseph Smith wasn't a prophet.
Right.
Like conceding that point doesn't prove anything. He's
That's
just
a
trying
false
to. It's
equivalent.
Exactly. Sometimes, and debate just puts everybody in that box where even with something as stupid as that, it's like we all know the answer is yes. Just say yes. You can't say yes. You know
Right.
what I mean? Versus a conversation where it's like, yeah, no, I can't prove that you didn't do that. Did you do that? Let's talk about
Yeah,
it. You know
yeah,
what I
be
mean?
honest,
Let's have
did
that
you?
conversation. He's gonna be like, no, I didn't, but I'm just trying to prove you can. It's like,
Right.
okay, cool. Now we got that out of the way.
Right.
Let's move on to something that's actually going to be helpful.
Productive.
But they spend 45 minutes on that because Andrew
Bickering
knows
about a dumb point.
He can. Yep, exactly. He can beat that down, and the guy just can't cede that ground because then it makes the whole thing look. And it's like, no, this is you guys are. This is not helpful to anyone.
Right.
You guys aren't getting anything out of it. Us as the listener are learning nothing.
You're wasting everybody's
time is being wasted. So I think debates in general are just. I mean, obviously, there's a time and a place for everything, but
So we don't debate?
My wife tells me I do regularly. I guess I just see I see everything as debate, so I mean I get that, but I it's the structure. It's there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser.
Yep.
I'm going to get my 5 minutes to talk, then you get your 5-minute rebuttal, and when it's done like that, it's so combative. There's just no room to really learn anything.
I have an idea for our first guest, and it's going to be a remote guest. I don't know if he'll do it or not, but if he's willing to do it, he's a good friend of mine from college who is Baptist. I don't think he's evangelical. He's a Protestant believer, and one of the most well-spoken individuals I've ever met in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if I frame it in a way of like, this is not a debate, this is not a gotcha, this is not come on my podcast so that I can get sound clips. It's a very genuine, hey, I have no stake in this claim, or I don't represent the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You don't represent the Protestant faith. Who cares if you're wrong? Who cares if I'm wrong? But I'm just curious, where do we overlap? Because I think there is a lot of overlap here. And rather than focusing on where we're separate and hashing out an hour of how different we are and how mine has to make more sense than yours, I'm just curious where the overlap is, because I'm willing to bet we're going to find a lot of the truth in the overlap.
Yeah.
I'll bet you that's where it's found.
Well, and I'm also really curious to know how the average person feels about LDS.
Yeah.
Because I wonder that a lot, too, of obviously we're seeing a lot of LDS hate, or however you'd want to categorize it.
It's popular right now.
Yeah, it's a popular
bash on
thing,
them.
but I do wonder how much of that is, gosh, I keep getting this phrase wrong, but the loud minority. Is that a loud minority
loud
of people
minority.
they're just pumping those videos out, and it's like the average Christian doesn't care about the LDS. They're like, yeah, they're Christian too. They believe in Christ. I wonder how many, because obviously the pastors, the people that are leading the congregation, there's plenty of those that you can see that are doing it. But the average member, do you think they care as much? Do you think they're like go as hard in the paint as the pastors, as the Mark Driscolls do?
I definitely don't feel qualified to answer for everyone. I have seen the data that they've shown in the videos where they've done the Pew research of like how do denominations feel about each other. They've done those studies, and LDS was ranked higher as far as
being hated
by other Christian denominations. It was one of the most disliked religions out there, according to the study.
Right.
Ironically enough, they also ranked the highest in having good attitudes towards other denominations. So they were ranked the highest for being disliked, and they were also ranked the highest for having a favorable disposition towards other believers not of their faith.
Interesting.
So that was kind of an interesting little thing. But as far as the average believer goes, I think my guest would be a very good example because he's a very chill guy. He's not a teacher. He has no, like I said, he has no stake and he has no representation in it.
He's just a believer.
He's just a believer, but he's a very devout believer.
Good.
Like he was one of the ones when I was 19, 20, whenever I met him. We went out to eat at a restaurant and he'd got his food, and when he sat down, he just said a quick little prayer over his food right there in the restaurant. And it was one of the first times I'd ever seen somebody just very quietly, unassumingly just do it in public. And then he went about eating his meal, and it was like, dang, like I don't question that guy's faith. Like his parents aren't around. We're a bunch of 20-year-old dudes hanging out, and he took the time to do it right there in front of all of us. Yeah. So like it gave mad respect to him. I think he's got a good foundation of just, faith in general. So I'd be very interested to kind of like see where we overlap with him. But the conversation about the apostasy that Jacob had, and then the conversation about the Trinity that's been coming up a lot, because that's been a big sticking point with not people bashing on Mormons, but one of the reasons why people are saying Mormons aren't Christian is because we don't accept the Trinity. And so there's been a bunch of conversations. My whole feed has been nothing but LDS versus Trinity, whatever. And that conversation has very much, in my opinion, been like, boy, we are literally talking about the exact same thing 95% of the time.
It's 99.
Maybe
the
even
only
99.
difference is we're saying Godhead and they're saying the way, and I haven't listened to a ton of debates on it, but every time I listen to a debate on it, they're describing the exact same theology
concept
that I've believed in my whole life as an LDS.
As far as I understand it, the only difference is a teaching, and it boils down to this. It boils down to something that we're taught as kids in the LDS church that I did not realize was such a controversial thing to teach kids, but it is. And it's that you are a literal Son of God. That rubs Trinitarians the wrong way worse than anything.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me for them getting rubbed, because it does make sense to me of if we're saying the Trinity is God, it's all God.
One God manifested in three beings.
Yeah, I get their problem. It doesn't bother me as much because obviously I was born from this thing.
But
I at least understand the idea of they're saying, hey, we're all saying that God is God, eternal round, but then you guys are trying to throw in that part of God was created by God, and that throws their right. That's what it really boils down to is God is the uncreated, all-knowing, all-powerful.
Always
being.
has been.
Always has been, always will be. He's not created. Ours, and this actually perfectly goes into, this is a great segue for a real conversation. This is one of those times in the debate that I feel like we need to just say what we all know the answer is. Yes, Jesus was created. In LDS theology, Jesus was created by God.
Kind of. And this is okay. Let's clarify it and then push forward, because I think you can say what you're saying. I think you can say, fine, let's just say he was created. But let's clarify that. When we say he was created by God, as the LDS doctrine teaches and the LDS philosophy, theology, whatever the word is, we don't really believe anybody was quote unquote created in the creation ex nihilo concept that Trinitarians believe. Trinitarians believe that at one point you did not exist. You were created out of nothing. God snapped his fingers and created you. Whatever process he went through.
Creation from
nothing. We do not adhere to that. We reject that idea. We say that you've always existed in one form or another. God has taken you and helped you move from this stage to that stage. And this stage didn't exist before. So yes, technically, the way you are now, yes, you were created. But we believe that you created in some form. And again, we don't know the details. We don't know all the exact stuff. But we do believe that you were there before, and he created you from something that was already there. Your intelligence, or whatever phrase they use, was there. Trinitarians have a really hard time accepting that concept. They believe in the creation ex nihilo concept.
So there's two different theologies at work there. One is God is the uncreated and creates everything from nothing, right? It's that's just... People would argue and say, you can't create something from nothing. And they go, well, you can if you're God. Right. And that's just the framework that they're living in. They need nothing for him to create everything. LDS have made it more of a Scientology kind of route of, hey, you logically, you can't create something from nothing, right? And you go, yeah. And he goes, well, good. God didn't either. He's just building blocks. He's just working at a level we're not at yet. He's not doing anything magical. He's not doing anything that you can't create something from nothing. He's not doing that. He's just creating with natural blocks, building blocks that are already existing in the universe, right? Is that the better way to? I'm talking
I
very
don't know
broad
near enough to
umbrella,
correct you on everything right there, and
but broad concept of the theology. Does that make sense to you?
it's a weird way to word it, but I think you're hitting it. I think you're
Well, I guess
hitting the target.
and maybe this is the way that the reason that I say it that way is because that's the way it always made sense to me.
Mhm.
When people would say the creation of the earth contradicts God, or it's either
creation
like the
contradicts
actual
evolution.
whatever, there's that part of it, and this contradicts God creating the earth because we can see this, and it's like, well, maybe that's how God created the earth. Maybe
maybe
the
science
Big
and
Bang,
God are kind of the same.
I know nothing about this, but it's like people are like, Big Bang discredits God. It's like, well, maybe God created the earth using the Big Bang.
Right.
Like maybe that's
just
him.
a possibility.
That's what it is. You know what I mean? So I think the LDS theology kind of lends credence to that kind of frame of thought of, it's not that God's doing magic. We don't believe that God's doing magic.
We just don't understand how he works.
We just don't. Yeah, as I say, he's just doing something that's I'm not capable
beyond our
of. That's
comprehension.
beyond our comprehension right now. I think standard Christianity sees it more magic. It's God can create magic. He's not doing something that you can't do what he does.
Right.
He's just
and where that becomes a problem, because you could just say, well, you believe in the magic portion, I believe in the scientific portion. We get to the same goal at the end of the day. There's not really a big problem yet.
No.
Where the problem comes in is where I believe that I am ontologically the exact same species as God. I am a son of God. And therefore I have the potential to become
as God is.
Not as God, but like God.
As God is.
Fine.
You can become as God is.
There's and this is another place where the moment you say that, the buzzword,
right? But that's
the
what
things
I'm saying.
go up.
And that's what
hold on, let me finish.
Yeah.
So, saying this as generously as I can, the LDS religion believing that you have the potential to become like God, when the scriptures say that
we already are like God, we are the same makeup. That's already established.
We have the potential. You hear that
to do
all
what
the
God
time.
Does.
No,
but we are the same as God.
No,
okay.
We do not have the same glory that God has. We do not have the same. We are not. We are.
I'm saying it in the sense of what you just said. Of we are ontologically the same. We are
yes.
An acorn and an oak tree are not the same looking, but they are the same.
But they are the same species. Yes, and we believe we're the same species. Whereas Trinitarian creedal Christians do not believe we're the same species. You will never become like God, no matter what you do. No matter what you say, you will never become like God.
Great.
That's where the rubber meets the road, and we have a butting of the heads, and we have a problem.
Right. Which makes sense to me in the sense of, if you're going to adhere to that mindset of God is just a magic thing, like he is something other than us, we're not the same.
Right.
For somebody to say part of that Godhead was created, I see how that's a big problem. Or that's a question of, it's not even necessarily that's a big problem, but just saying, okay, well, we're not talking about the same God. My God is this, and your God, we're not just talking about like some exterior thoughts here. We're talking about the actual God is different, because mine was never created. It is creating things from nothing, and it's all right here.
Right.
Your God is created from something, and half of the Godhead was created after. One part of it was created after the other. Do you know what I'm saying? So this is one of those times where I feel like there's a lot of what's frustrating to me listening to these conversations in the discussions is when they pull back, and because there's such a triggering word to be like, we are the same, or once we start getting into that conversation where we're not just the same, but we can be as God is, because that's such a controversial thing. I feel like there's times that we don't just stand on the stone that was given of, yes, we are capable of becoming gods. That is a real thing. Like all the surrounding stuff that's implied by it, we fight all of those things. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm having a hard time phrasing it, but that's
the tricky part is that we don't know all of the implied things. All of the implied things are conjecture. They're men hypothesizing, and don't get me wrong, like, you're welcome to hypothesize. You're welcome to say, well, if this is the case, I think that means X, Y, and Z. And you may be right, you may be wrong. The more that I'm listening to these conversations, and from an ecumenical position, I've told you my theory of Jesus' hair color, right?
Oh yeah, it just doesn't matter.
Where it does not change what we're here. It's fun to have the conversation. It's
Mhm.
fun to get into the debates. It's as long as it's done from a place of good faith and unity. Like the whole time that Jacob is talking with this other guy, and I'm gonna have to send you the video for the Trinity video, but the whole time the guy is like holding so fast to no, I think it does matter. I think it's a very important thing that you see it my way, because if you don't, if you have the wrong, in his the way that he worded it was, if you have the wrong impression of God, then you don't, how do you know you're serving the right God? How do you know you're glorifying the right God? Like you may spend
Yeah.
your entire life worshiping the wrong deity if you
Mhm.
don't have a clear concept of God.
Which, to be fair,
Which is a
God's
good
told
point.
us
Absolutely.
will happen.
Joseph Smith has an
Yeah.
entire series called the Lectures on Faith, which is all about the attributes of God. So he's so dead on with that. I agree with him 100% in that, except for when you take into the account that it is not knowledge that saves you. It's not. What saves you?
Christ.
Specifically, what?
You're talking about.
Yeah, grace. We'll call it grace. You're saved by grace. You're not saved by works. You're not saved by knowledge. The person who was out on a desert island, whatever, the untouched tribe,
Yeah.
when you show up and you say, I've got great news for you, there's a God who wants to save you. And they're like, is this the great spirit in the sky? And you're like, yeah, sure. Call him the great spirit in the sky. The title doesn't really matter quite as much.
Mhm.
What you need to know is there's a great spirit in the sky who sent his son to save you, and you go through the gospel. Nowhere in the gospel, nowhere really even in the New Testament, does Christ ever say, and here's an important thing you need to know about God. He is a shapeless, formless, passionless, unmoved mover who exists outside of time and space, whatever I forget the fancy Latin words, but he's the same substance. Nowhere was that an important part of his ministry. When
Okay.
he was telling Peter, Peter, do you love me? Peter's like, yes, Lord, I love you. What was the only direction he gave him?
Feed my sheep.
It's as simple as that.
But this, to say that it's not spelled out easily in the Bible means that it's not important.
Can you think of anywhere in the Bible where Christ put a big emphasis on understanding the concept or the identity of
I can't-
God in that way?
I can't think of anywhere in the Bible where Jesus is talking about half of and or any of the sealings and what's it called? What's the word for it? Covenants that the LDS.
Oh, dude, I
do.
could send you all kinds of stuff where it's in there.
I know you can point to stuff. I know we
But
can.
even that said, even that being said,
Let me
let me.
rephrase. I think there's lots of people that could point to where they think that the Trinitarian view theology is thrown in there. You would agree it's not. It's spelled. If it's there, you have to look for it because it's not spelled out.
The
There's
Trinity?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's never
I think
explicitly called.
there
The Trinity,
100%
it's
will be
never
people
explained.
who can point to a million different verses and go, "Oh, see, there it is." You would disagree. You would say, "I don't think that's what they're talking about."
Right.
I think that's the exact same thing we come out with the covenants.
With the covenants?
Part.
Okay,
You can
and
point to
you're
a
right.
lot
I
of things, and
shouldn't
I
have.
go, "Nah, maybe, maybe not."
You're right.
But I think we can both agree neither of those things are in the Bible explicitly. Of hey, to get salvation, to do if you love me and you want to follow me, go do the covenants in the temple from the LDS Church. Or here's what you need to understand about the Trinitarianism to be saved. I think neither of those are in there, and I think it's telling on both, if we're being honest.
Okay.
The way that you put it, I would agree with you. I think
Okay.
it is very telling that if that is the one thing I need to do to be able to get to the top and be with Jesus, it should be in there. If it's really that important, I should probably be able to see it in the scriptures.
Okay.
I think it is telling that it's not. I think it's equally telling that there's not anything for the sealings
For the ordinances?
or thank you. That's where I was.
Ordinances?
The
Okay.
ordinances.
Can
of
I
the
throw out
LDS
something to
Church.
consider?
Yeah, absolutely.
The way that the LDS theology lays it out, and I don't know if the Christian theology does as well. I'm speaking purely from an LDS standpoint here. But when you go to the temple, they talk about the different dispensations throughout the course of history, right?
Okay.
There's the Adamic dispensation where Adam came down to earth and they had very, very simple law of obedience type stuff, right? Then they came down with the higher law with Deuteronomy, which is the law of Moses, right?
yeah.
They were held to a different standard. Wasn't really talked about ahead of time. You can find there were things alluding to it the whole time, but it wasn't taught in the way that it was until Moses comes, right? Then you have new stuff that comes out. Christ, he comes to fulfill the covenant, and he fulfills the law of Moses, and he brings new stuff forward.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get what they call the last dispensation, which is where new things have been rolled out. Under that theology, the idea of ordinances not being found in the Bible explicitly taught that makes total sense because they're doing it in a timeline where the law's getting unrolled, or there's more light showing up, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
That timeline makes a lot of sense. I don't think the ordinances not being taught explicitly in the LD or in the New Testament or the Old Testament is a different ball of yarn than people saying, hey, we're getting this teaching from the New Testament or the Old Testament, except for the fact that it's not in there and it wasn't introduced until the Nicene Creeds, where people came and widely debated it. It wasn't just a, hey, we're going to codify this in history. We all believe it. We're just going to write it down officially. It was debated about and argued about, and there was plenty of people who were like, that's not what this is.
As opposed to the...
What I'm saying is all the creeds did
Yeah.
was get a whole bunch of people who came around and they said, hey, we're going to pick one way to go forward.
Right.
But it was not
And it's not explicitly spelled out in
it's not explicitly called out in that, in where they're claiming that it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody claims that the ordinances come from the Old Testament. They say you can find it there, but they're claiming that it came from new revelation. So I see that as different than the Nicene Creed claim.
I guess my point being, I understand the logic of, if there is a way to get to Christ, Christ probably is wanting to tell us it.
Agreed.
Okay.
With you there.
Scripture is probably one of the first safest places to look if we're looking for what God wants us to know. There's only a handful of things that he can tell us. It's probably a safe place to
With
start.
you on that page.
Even coming from an LDS theology and including D&C and the Book of Mormon.
All the new canon.
And all the new canon. I would argue if all of those things are as essential to salvation, the way... Before we get to that, would you agree that the LDS Church has certain steps that are required for salvation?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
I can tell you what they are really quick.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's go.
Faith, repentance, baptism, receiving the Holy Ghost.
Okay. So this is actually, and I really don't want to get too into the weeds because I worry that we're already kind of off of our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, repentance, baptism by immersion, receive the Holy Ghost.
Mhm.
That gets you celestial.
Mhm.
Okay. Celestial
That's
is
salvation.
That's salvation.
Mhm.
That's life with God, right? Celestial kingdom God is.
Mhm.
Okay. At bare minimum, that is saying that baptism is required.
Mhm.
Okay.
Which is found in the New Testament,
For sure.
explicitly spelled out.
You know what? Yeah, all right. I'll take that off. I think that's definitely one of the or the confusing parts that I've had of understanding.
The doctrine versus the culture.
Well, yeah, that's perfect.
And this is a good segue. In the LDS culture, where they are given the Articles of Faith, we're all taught the Articles of Faith as a child. I mean, I'm pretty sure they even tried to get me to memorize them, but I didn't.
Yeah, I get everybody to memorize them.
So they're given at a very early age.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason in our culture, and I'm not saying who's to blame for this, but as you go to church and you're spending more time teaching all of these like further along doctrines, and like we almost kind of skip over and we lose that really beautifully simple part of the doctrine where this is for everyone, literally everyone. All you have to do is turn your life over to Christ. You have to just believe that he is. And this is where Jacob and that other guy we were talking about, the Trinitarian, where he's like, well, yeah, but you guys, because you believe that Christ is created, you don't feel like he's fully divine. When we say divine, we mean beginning to end, he is God. Yeah. And he wasn't understanding how in the LDS theology, there is room for Christ to still be fully divine, even if he's not the same part of God and came into existence the way that God came into existence at the same point in, not time because they're outside of time, but if they didn't come to being together, the Trinitarian belief does not allow for Christ to still be fully divine. And so they don't think that we see him as divine. And that's where, like, you don't worship the same Jesus we do.
Right.
But from our perspective, we do. From our perspective, we absolutely believe Christ is fully divine with every power that Father has. Christ also has. Because his will is so aligned with God, God holds nothing back from him. He has access to every ounce of God's glory and power and capability. Mm-hmm. He's just as divine as God. But he's not God. He is his Son, who's aligned his will so much with the Father that he has become one with the Father. And that's how we interpret where Christ is praying and he says, Father, I pray that they are one in me as I am one in you. Right. We're seeing it in a way where we're talking about a transformation from, which is essentially what this life is you living your will, the way you want to live it. You make a choice based off of what you want to do.
Yeah.
And when you fully surrender that and you say, not my will, but thine be done, and you give everything over to the Father and you become so in line with his will, you become sanctified and holy in his will that you become like God does. You won't be God, or maybe you'll be exalted to a godlike status, but it's God little g. It's not the God. It's not the top honcho that they're referring to when they refer to God, capital G. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So they don't have that same paradigm and that same foundation that we're coming from. So for them, it's very much heresy, you know?
Which, yeah, well, and I guess I think that's where I'd want to be like, it is heresy. To their
In the
mindset,
way where it's
to
not
their mindset,
in their with
to
their mindset.
to their view,
And their
it is
mindset
heresy.
comes from a creed that was solidified and codified
And maybe it's
way
true,
back
and
in the
maybe
day.
it's not. But that's why I guess when we're always having this conversation of can Mormons be Christians, can we get included in the club or whatever it is?
Mhm.
One, I think it's fair for the people that don't want to, or say that they shouldn't be, because again, that it makes sense to me that this is a different God. We are talking about two different gods. If you're talking about a God, if you believe that God is the sole, uncreated, unmoved mover,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, then our theology does not teach that. We don't believe in an uncreated. That's what does Jacob say all the time. That's Aristotle's God.
Mhm.
That's not the true God that we believe in. We believe in
The ancient Hebrew tradition. That's the
yeah,
Greek tradition.
that's the Greek tradition. We don't believe in an unmoved mover. We don't believe in an uncreated God. We believe God was created as part of a process. He didn't create from nothing. He was created from something. And that's what's frustrating to me of it's like we'll have something that is, I think, a doctrine. I think there's plenty of doctrinal backing to say we don't believe in an uncreated creator, right? Would you
Okay.
agree with that? Doctrine or the
I'm not
concept
sure
that we're
I
talking about
understand it the way that
is
people are
doctrinally
using it.
based. Can we say
Right.
that? The concept that we're talking about is doctrinally based. This
Yeah.
isn't made up from the culture. This is coming downstream
Right.
from doctrine. I guess what I'm trying to nail down is at the end of the day, we're believing in a structure we have a theology that says there is a progression, there is a process.
Mhm.
We are working towards something. We're not. This isn't it. This isn't the
End goal.
yeah. This is not. It's not our purpose to be here, but it's not the only purpose.
No, this is like a cocoon stage for us.
Exactly. Okay. There's more to this.
Mhm.
There was more before. There will be more after.
Mhm.
That is fundamentally a
Different from
view
creedal
from
Christianity.
creedal Christianity. And
Agreed.
it's not an argument on which one's right or which one's wrong. What drives me nuts is that when we go, okay, this is doctrinally based, but the second that we take it to its logical conclusion and
Mhm.
it says something that's part of that controversial buzzword, we go,
Mhm.
no, this isn't even doctrine. You guys are just hearing some
Gotcha.
anti-Mormon craziness. We don't have our own planet. It's like, yeah,
Yep.
but we have the potential to. At the end of the day, if that's what we're saying,
There's a possibility of.
this is what's so frustrating to me. If
Is
the
because is there
example that
anything
gets used,
doctrine that nails that down?
I think it depends on how much you consider King Follett doctrinal. But on top of that, my son has the potential to become as I am.
Mhm.
He is the same as me. We are the same makeup. Now, I would agree if I say that means when he grows up, he's going to have red hair and he's
Or
going to
when he
become an
grows up, he'll become an
electrician.
electrician. Yep.
Yeah, those are speculations.
That's a
Sure,
possibility.
that's a possibility. He might, he may not.
Not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. I get that. But to say when he grows up, he's going to go swim in the ocean and become a fish. It's like, okay, that's a stretch that's stupid, right?
Okay.
Okay. Me saying that he's going to grow up and work the way that I have to work, or he's going to grow up and have a family the way that I grew up and have a family.
Pure speculation.
It's speculation, but it's not like unreasonable speculation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
It's more than not. Let me rephrase. I figured out how I want to rephrase
Okay.
this. If I say Mormons believe that they can get their own planets, what would you say to that?
I'd say that's not guaranteed, and I don't think every Mormon believes that.
Okay, perfect. If I then say Mormons have the possibility,
Mormons believe they have the possibility.
Mormons believe that they have the possibility to grow up and create their own planets, what would you say to that?
I would say probably. Again, we don't know. There's a lot of speculation,
There's
but
tons
we don't
of
know.
speculation, but as far as the theology
We
goes,
believe that's a
we
possibility.
believe that
Yes.
it's possible for us to do that.
Sure.
Okay, cool. And this is where there's so much talking past each other.
Get that that's frustrating.
We are
One of
saying,
them sounds like a straw man argument.
but it's not. That's
Hold on, but it kind of is.
It's not at all. Continue. I just want to be annoying and frustrating. Sorry, continue.
It's okay. I agree with you. In Mormon theology, that is absolutely a possibility.
Is it not just the possibility, but the implied?
We don't know.
Hold up. We don't know anything.
Right.
So let's just accept we're going to talk about some things that we don't know.
Here's how I would do this.
That's fine. We don't know.
We've got a giant pie chart in front of us
Okay.
that represents the next life. Giant pie chart. Okay.
Mhm.
Infinite number of possibilities of what the next life could look like.
We could all look like salamanders.
We could all look like salamanders. We could literally all just be little babies with bare butts and wings and fly around singing praise to God.
All possible.
We could have planets.
Yep.
And a billion other possibilities.
Yep. How many Mormon prophets
Nobody
have speculated that we'll be salamanders?
I don't know.
No, you don't know how
salamanders?
many will be
None.
Perfect. How many have speculated that will be baby cherubs?
Please. It doesn't matter. And this is why I'm saying it doesn't matter. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, please.
Okay.
I'm 1,000% willing to grant that in the Mormon theology, owning planets is a slice of that pie. Yes, it's been talked about, not anytime recently, but it's been talked about and by more than one person.
Okay.
Are we on the same page?
Yes.
Cool. So it is officially a spot on that pie chart. And other Christian denominations don't even put that as a possibility. Their pie chart they don't know either, but they're willing to say that's not one of them.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Okay.
Fair enough. With the Mormons, that does end up officially being a possibility.
And why is it a possibility?
Because people have suggested it before.
Who suggested it?
Prophets have suggested it before.
How aggressively?
I don't know that
Have
one.
you never read the King?
I have read the King Follett.
Okay, perfect. So let's just talk Joseph Smith.
Okay.
Do you think he's pretty heavily saying, I think something, I have an idea,
It doesn't matter to me. Granted, in context, the King Follett discourse was not supposed to be a Joseph Smith, everybody come around, I've received revelation, and here's my thing to you. He's speaking at a friend's funeral, and then he goes off.
Yeah.
And people are like not sure. People are not sure what to do with this. They're like, was this an official doctrine? Was this a revelation? What was going on here? He just kind of went on his thing.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with saying that gives it a guaranteed spot on our wheel of possibilities. I'm totally down to say that.
Yeah.
What I'm not willing to say is because he did go off on this random funeral eulogy, that is a guarantee the next life.
So this is what let's try an exercise. I'm a human. I have the potential, because I am God's son, to grow and become as God is and do what God does. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
You have the potential. I think you do.
Okay, perfect. Johnny's understanding of the LDS gospel.
Mhm.
We are a son of God.
I believe so.
Okay. I have the potential to become as God is.
One day, yes. I believe so.
Okay, perfect. God currently is a God to a planet.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to become as he is, that means that you're okay with saying there's the possibility I am a God to my own planet.
Here's the thing that I think. I feel like Christ was the one who actually physically formed our planet.
Totally fine.
Do I see my having the potential to form my own planet and be the Lord of that planet the way that Christ was the Lord of this planet? I have no idea. It seems like it would be within that realm of possibility. If I am able to do everything that God did, and God did that, I can draw the connection of that means someday I might be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that really will be looking like that.
Totally fine.
I also am not sure I would want that.
I don't either. I wouldn't for a second. I don't think most people would, because that's pretty
terrifying.
To say,
that's a huge amount of.
But I'm just talking about what's realistic, and I guess that's just my thought of there's zero pushback. If I have this conversation with 100 Mormons, I'm going to get zero pushback of I am God's son. Yep, 100%. Mm-hmm. I can become as God is. Yep, I think so. God created a planet, and take any portion of that you want. If I want to say God created a planet, or God has Christ and Christ creates the planet, insert yourself on either side of that, however you want to. But the second that we start talking about that, there's hesitation. It goes from the I think so to I don't know.
Just because that's not explicitly said, other than the phrase the son can do nothing but what he sees the father do. Yeah. There's allusions to you will do what God does. There's even where he says you will inherit all that my father has in store for you. There's phrases that hint on that for sure. So I think so. Yes, I do think so. I'm not willing to go hard because that is a very big claim that I don't know and I can't back it up beyond those scriptures that I just referenced.
That's what's frustrating to me. The big claim is that we can't have the potential to be as God is. That's the big claim. Not that we're going to create a planet. That's what's so. Okay. This is what this illustrates it perfectly. We get so caught up on the dumb part. Uh-huh. We get caught up on because anti-Mormons have used they're going to create a planet. There's a term that they throw planet out and people go, no, we don't believe that. That's crazy talk. And it's like, yeah, we're totally down to swallow anything and everything
Up to that point.
up to the planet. The planet is the most logical next step. That's so stupid to be like, well, I know, yep, we've been told this, we're cool with this, Now we're in speculation mode. It is speculation. It's the most reasonable, logical next step, speculation.
But let's stay where we were. We don't know what that is. We don't know what that's willing to look like. When the moment somebody gets really specific, I backpedal, right? The moment you get anything specific, so you believe you're going to be like God is one day, so you think that you're going to get a planet, so you think you're going to be in charge of someone, so you think you're going to have responsibilities of X, Y, or Z, throw out whatever you want. The moment you say that, no, I never said that. I said, I believe I have the potential to be as God is. And I only say that because I believe I am a son of God.
And you've been
I understand
that makes sense.
I understand what that could infer. I understand what connections you could logically draw from that. I understand all of that. I'm putting the hard line of speculation versus the doctrine. The doctrine never says you'll get a planet, you'll be a god of a group of people, however large or small. None of that. It says you are a son of God. Agree that the speculation now means maybe someday you will be in charge of people the way God is. Maybe you'll be in charge of a planet or 10 planets or a billion planets. I understand that that opens up all of those possibilities. Nobody's going to go hard on that because in our own circles, you're right. We do speculate without anybody pushing back because nobody's attacking that caricature.
Right.
The moment somebody turns it into a caricature, you believe you guys are a literal cartoon. You guys literally believe that God had sex with 100 celestial mothers and had all these babies. They're characterizing it 100%. The moment you say that you believe you can get a planet someday, that may be true, that may not be, but you are characterizing it, and it's no longer being had in good faith.
It doesn't. Okay, I could accept that it's not in good faith because I think there's plenty of people who do it not in good faith.
I would argue almost 99% of the time it's not. And the reason why is because we have to draw that line of the doctrine stops right up to that point. The doctrine from a child all the way up to the temple as an adult, you are hammered in the message. You are a child of God with divine potential. Beyond that, it's pure speculation. The church doesn't go hard on it nowadays, and it really hasn't since the early days of the church. I don't know anybody very recently who's weighed in on that at all. Do you?
No.
I think it was just the early church fathers.
So were they wrong?
I don't know, but I know it doesn't change the here and now,
right,
and that's why I'm willing to put it in the category of Christ's hair color. Could have been brown.
Yeah.
Could have been black. Maybe it was blonde or red. Don't know. Doesn't change what we're called to do right now. Salvation comes not from knowledge. It comes from faith, repentance, baptism, and receiving the Holy Ghost. That's the important part for here and now. If you can handle those four things, there is so much more you can go and explore. There's so much more conjecture and different opposing theories. There's the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and there's large schools of thought out there, and they've got good arguments for what they think. But none of it will save you. None of it's the important stuff for here and now. What's important now is repentance and faith and then feeding the sheep. That's the important stuff.
If we're talking about, is this relevant for my salvation? I'm totally with you. This is hair color. The only thing, everything is Jesus' hair color other than do you believe in Jesus?
Absolutely.
I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that. Accepting that we're going to say,
do you think that Godhead versus Trinity is a matter of salvation?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't. Okay. But I also haven't fully nailed down what I believe is necessary for salvation. But I know that I'm way closer to the side of accepting Christ and enduring to the end.
Yeah.
The concept, the overall concept. Obviously, I think that there's got to be exceptions for that because it makes no sense to the person that never gets a chance to hear Christ.
Right. And even those people who only hear him in passing are like, in the scriptures, they do refer, God says multiple times that like, or at least in the Book of Mormon, I don't know about the Bible, but I did, and I finished the Book of Mormon before the end of the year.
Did you?
Literally finished December 30th or 31st, whatever it was. Anyway, in there multiple times, especially like when Nephi's getting his vision at the beginning, it shows all the people scattered upon the isles of the sea and the different lands. Like they're trying to nail home that wherever you were Christ was made known to them in some form or another. They had some kind of a tradition that spoke of a
Christ.
good spirit and a negative spirit in some way. And obviously the amount of truth that was given there, who knows?
Yeah.
But they make it sound like all peoples were given something to follow, and to the level of light that they received,
They'll be
to the
held
level that
accountable.
they accepted it is what they're
Yeah.
held accountable on.
Well, and that's what makes sense to me. Of there's going to be room for the people that never hear the name Christ,
Yeah.
who never hear anything about the Gospels. I think that there's an option and a plan for them. But
I mean, a truly loving God would have to have
yeah,
some
and
kind
I
of
would love to. I
accommodations
would
made for
love to
that.
have that conversation with just a normal Christian who's whatever Christians. I'm assuming Catholics do, Presbyterians. I'm assuming all of them adhere to the idea of if you just never hear of Christ and you're just going to hell, and that's just kind of
You're
what
left
it is.
out in the
I would
dark.
love that. I would love to have a conversation with anybody that believes that. I've been on the fence of how much I feel like the LDS Church believes that, not in the sense of because they do. The LDS theology has a plan for those who just never hear the name Christ because you'll get taught it in the spirit prison.
Yeah, missionary
afterwards.
work after death.
But then there's the side and the aspect of the spirit that controls you in this life will be the spirit that controls you in the next one. And if you reject the message in this life and you go to bed, you go to your deathbed with that spirit of rejection. That's what you'll have in the next life.
So, for the record, I was never taught that if you go to bed adamantly denying Christ and then you die, that the clock's up for you. I was always under the impression that you will still have the chance to receive the truth in the next life, but it will be much harder for you to receive it because you didn't receive it while you heard it here.
Right. It'd be easier to do here.
Yeah.
And the spirit that possesses you when you die will be the spirit that you wake up with. You've been taught that.
In the next
In the
life.
next life.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you're not getting it doesn't just
you don't wake
don't
up and
just wake
suddenly
up
all of
and
a
you're
sudden
there
your
and-
memory's back and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I remember this place.
Right.
No, I've always been taught that you will enter the next life, whatever that is, with the same spirit or knowledge or impressions or habits or whatever you want to
So
call
who
it.
knows what that again. See, that's I get that there's a point in time where it's like, hey, here's something that has been spoken of strongly, doctrinally. There is an afterlife. There is a window after you die, but before the resurrection.
Before the final
the
judgment.
final judgment where you'll be taught. That is doctrinal.
Yep.
Exactly what that looks like, exactly how you'll change, whether it's teachers in a classroom and you're sitting there learning, or I get that part's speculation.
Sure.
So I understand that there are some things that are going to be doctrinally based, and then there's the speculation that gets thrown out about that. I just think that there's some, like if we were to talk about what spirit prison looks like, I think that would be very speculative because nobody's commented on it, even under the best of
Joseph Fielding
circumstances.
Smith has a really good
of spirit prison
section on the next life.
What does he say?
Section 1. I'm not even going to be able to say it. It's like the last
What does he
section
say-
of the
what does he
Doctrine
say
and Covenants.
about it?
He's the one who was going there and saying that he's found like all of the early church fathers there. So like Moses, Abraham. These are people who never received Christ because he was not around in their lifetime. But he was there and he saw Christ appear to them after the resurrection. Before the resurrection. So he dies for 3 days. He's no longer on this earth.
Yeah.
According to the restored gospel, he goes specifically to spirit prison.
This is in, what is this in?
It's one of the last sections of the D&C. It's taught that Christ went to the spirit world during the 3 days after his death, and he went and brought the gospel to them as well, and he taught the ones who would know him the best, which would have been like Jacob, Joseph, Isaac, Abraham, Adam, Enoch, all those people who still died, who hadn't received him, so they can't go into the paradise, but they were waiting for him. So he goes there, he teaches them, and now he's giving them the same kind of thing that he did here on earth, where he got 12 people and he made disciples and told them to spread the gospel. He did the same thing up there, and that's what kicked off missionary service in the spirit prison. And so they are now spreading the gospel to anybody who hadn't accepted him here on this earth.
Got it. Well, I was
They
unaware
don't give a lot of details of what it like looks like physically, like what it, whether it's like a bunch of clouds or a desert or whatever it looks like. But that's where that theology comes from.
Got it. I
probably said that completely
totally
wrong.
unaware of that. But I guess all I was trying to say I think there are some things that are way more unreasonable to speculate about. I think there are some things that are way more logical speculations and or have had way more backing from the church leadership that it depends on whether it's controversy or not. whether we're gonna lean into it or say, it's nonsense.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I'm not necessarily worried too much about whether it's controversial or not. I'm more just kind of hitting on, does it make sense to me in a...
Okay, I'm gonna push back on that. I
Please.
don't think so, because I think it's very reasonable to say, what's God's purpose?
To bring to pass the eternal life and
happiness
joy of man.
Happiness of man. Okay, perfect. If I do as God does, then I would do the
What do you
purpose
mean by
that
that?
He's. If I can be as God is,
Okay.
then I would assume that my goal will be what His goal is.
In a perfect setup, yeah.
Yeah, and we're just going off of what's logical. You just said I've just focused on what is logical and makes sense to me. Okay, perfect.
Well, hold on.
Our theology is going
and
to put us at a good starting point.
when I say what makes sense to me, I don't mean logically. I mean, what do I feel good about? And this was the other thing with the Jacob whatever debate when he's talking about, like, you can't prove spiritual things by
non-spiritual methods.
Non-spiritual methods. Yeah, like I think there are things here that you can logic your way through,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's near as good of a barometer or a needle to follow as the spiritual side.
So with that, you being the Son of God
feels right to me.
Feels
I
right.
believe
Logically
that.
makes sense to you.
I believe that.
Okay, perfect. You growing up and having the potential to be and do as God does
also feels right to me.
Okay, perfect. God's purpose is to bring about the eternal life and happiness of man. Does that make sense?
Believe
that
yeah.
would be your goal too.
Yeah.
If you're going to grow to be,
if I'm
going to
submit my will to the Father,
you're going to be doing the same.
I think that's what will make me the most happy.
Okay.
And I think He would give me as much as I'm able to handle. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All that's tracking. All that
tracks
sense.
with me. Yes.
That you would be involved in a planet of your own
someday,
one way or another. Someday,
I see that as a possibility. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure I want that. So internally, I'm not like, yeah, let's do it.
But as far as what makes sense in
possibly,
your heart,
yeah, totally.
Okay. Why do you answer that one differently than the previous ones?
What do you mean?
The rest of them, you just been like, yeah. The second that it comes to the planet part, you always add a caveat of like, possibly, maybe.
Yeah, simply because I haven't had that ring true to me. I don't have any testimony.
Oh, really? That doesn't.
I've never had any kind of spiritual confirmation about anything in the next life, other than, and just to get personal for a moment, I have done some deep soul searching of what my family will look like. That is something I've dedicated time to. I've studied, I've prayed, I've fasted. I've put in the time in the gym for that topic.
Yeah.
I have a very good feeling, and I believe that me and my family will be together and will be happy if I trust in God. If I do what I'm supposed to do here and now, which is minister to my children, teach and serve my wife, treat those around me the way that Christ would have me treat them. If I hold to these truths and I give everything to God, I stop worrying and I turn the battle over to Him, I believe my family will be together and will be happy. That's not necessarily what the quote-unquote LDS church teaches. I'm not married to a member. I'm not sealed to my wife. Under the church teachings, I have no reason to believe that. I believe that because of spiritual effort and communication with my God.
Right.
Personal thought. I've never put in any of that effort towards the planets. Therefore, I have no thoughts on it one way or the other. When I say I don't know and you get frustrated, I wish I had a different answer for you. Truth is I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't change anything for me in the here and now because I feel like I've locked in on what God wants me to focus on. And I'm able to put that, and I know you hate this phrase too, I'm able to put the planets on the shelf.
No, I'm fine with that.
But I put the planets on the shelf because they don't change anything for me here and now. And that's why I say it's kind of like Christ's hair color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I guess that's where it comes down to. I'm totally fine with the idea of, hey, I don't think this matters to me salvationally, so I just don't care. Because that's where I'm at with church right now.
Yeah.
That's why I've been stuck where I am. It's because I've gotten to a point where I don't believe that the LDS claims of what's required for me to become saved is required.
Okay.
So I don't do any of those things because I don't think that that's what's necessary for my salvation.
Good.
In the same way that I don't think. Well, I kind of am lining up with Presbyterians, but that's so I totally understand that logic of I'm only focused on the things that I think are going
feel like are important
that
to you.
are important. I totally get that, but obviously we're talking about and we're speculating on a million different things that aren't necessarily
right. But when you were asking me why I answered differently, that's why I answered differently. I do have spiritual confirmation on the idea that God is not just a all-powerful dude up there, and I'm His creation, and like He hopes that I do well, and so He nudges me in the right direction. I personally feel like it's a much more intimate father-son type relationship. I have
than just creator created.
Yeah, I personally feel very strongly the child of God concept, so I'm willing to say yes to that one. also the whole potential to become God. Like that one makes sense, and I feel good about that. I've heard talks where they're talking about it, and
Mhm.
I've gotten hopeful and exciting, and I
So
don't
what?
think I'd put a hard nail in that, but
So
I
if
feel
you
good
feel
about
good
it.
about that, what's your gut reaction of what that would look like?
Again, I don't know.
We know you don't know.
I'll be honest with you, like the phrase "you can be as God is," to me, it's like that to me makes me feel like I'm gonna see my son and my daughters really happy. Like I'm going to experience the joy that I experience as a father, but like infinitely more. I'm gonna see them grow and develop and hopefully even be better than me one day, and my joy will come from their success.
Mhm.
That's how I interpret it. That's the
So
picture in
you'll
my
just
head.
continue to grow as a father, and that
I kind of feel like that, yeah.
relationship and role
Well, I
will
mean, what is God? God is light, truth,
love.
charity, love, right? All things that I'm trying to build in my relationship with my kids. I find God
All things good.
through polishing my relationship with my kids. The more grace that I'm allowed to give them, the more I'm able to protect them and guide them to things that are good for them. I'm getting higher levels of joy from that than I ever have in my life.
Yeah.
I'm finding God in my relationship with my kids. So when I hear this like I'm going to be like God someday, I almost kind of interpret that as like I'm going to know my kids the way that God knows me, or I might know my wife the way that God knows. Like if I'm aligned with him enough to where I genuinely just always want what's good for people. I don't interrupt in their agency. I don't, like I still let them make the mistake,
Mhm.
but I'm able to maintain that pure charitable love for them throughout it. That's how I kind of see myself becoming like God. I don't know what the physical things will look like or what the next life will look like,
Mhm.
but to me it's becoming much much more a knowledge of things as they are, a knowledge of my children as they are, and the ability to love them as they are. That's kind of more the direction I take it.
Got him. I have no follow
Okay.
up.
But that's yeah. And so like when we're talking about the
Yeah.
planets and stuff like that, it's like, man, like who knows, dude? Like
Yeah.
maybe, maybe, but it's you're missing the mark when you're worried about the planets, or is God a formless, shapeless, passionless creator of all things, uncreated creator, and we're arguing about that part of it. And it's like, and I know I said this in the last episode, but like I felt like a second coming came
Mhm.
when I aligned myself with Christ. I already got a little sliver of that. And the more I try to align myself with that, the more it's become very real and very present. And like all these things that we've talked about in church or we talk about on YouTube, like it's just different than what I initially thought it would be.
Yeah, I get it because again, I don't think that it's relevant to my salvation, but I understand for somebody who their whole point of or their whole idea of the only way to have salvation is to find the right God and accept the right God. Then anybody who's believing in a
Not the right God.
not the right God, I get how that's now a relevant conversation. That's a relevant argument. I get why they get the burr up the butt about saying LDS is Christian because I see that I see that being a relevant. I guess that's just kind of what I'm saying. Like I think we do believe in different
We believe in
gods.
different attributes of the God, but we believe in the same function of the God. We believe it's
Yes,
a
we do believe
God.
in a function in the function of, but
He saves you
but
by
even
grace.
inside of that, there's a big difference because we come from the point of we are his literal children. He cares about us on individual level. And not to say that normal Christianity doesn't believe in that concept of he cares about all of us, but he clearly doesn't care about all of us
The way that LDS
the
people think
way
he does.
yeah, because he's okay sending them to hell. Clearly, there is a there, and this is the conversation I'd love to have with anyone and everyone. Please, I would love to have the conversation with somebody who truly believes in this because
Very curious how that
I'm
works.
very curious to see how you square this because that's one of the big problems that I had with the LDS theology was I struggle with any idea of eternal consequence for temporary
Circumstances.
temporary circumstances having eternal judgment. That concept makes no sense to me, but it could make sense if I don't actually mean that much to the person
Who
who's making the
created you?
judgment.
Yeah.
If I'm just a creation, and at the end
If
of the
I'm an
day, like
ant.
I'm an ant, yeah, I could put ants into a different category that sucks, and these ants into a good one. I could do that. I couldn't do that with my children. I just couldn't do it. It's
Right.
physically impossible for me to think about putting my son, no matter what choices he makes, into a place where he's being punished or that I lose connection with him.
So the idea of being a child of God makes sense to you more so than being an ant to God.
Yeah, I mean, in general, that concept makes sense to me just because I think that's just because I was taught, you know what I mean? But it makes more sense. It becomes more relevant when we're talking about the final destination
Yeah.
of where we go. And that was part of my problem with the LDS theology, was feeling like there was going to be a lot of people. I think the LDS theology still believes in a hell. We just believe in a better hell. We believe in a happier hell. I'm gonna be honest. The Christian, or just the normal Christian who goes to hell is going to be in a lake of fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
The LDS is still going to go to that same hell. We'll just have a jet ski. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of the way that I've framed it in my mind of.
A very interesting way to think about it.
Well, no, I mean if you hear them talk about it, that's what they talk about. It's so cool. It's a paradise. It's a paradise. It's going to be
So
really
what-
fun. If you saw it, it's
Uh-huh.
so cool. You'd kill yourself today.
But the
to
reason why
go
you're
there.
calling it hell is because it's not with
It's
God.
not with God. It's separation from God. That is what hell is.
Right. Do you believe in that concept of hell being locked from the inside?
Yeah, that makes more sense to me than that it's locked from the
Like you're
outside.
only there as long as you are rejecting God.
Yeah.
The moment you accept God, you're welcome back into the party.
That makes total sense to me. We've had this conversation before. I don't feel like that's the way the LDS have taught it. I don't think eternal progression is something that you could say is the standard teaching.
Idea in the LDS church?
Below the celestial kingdom.
Progression outside of the
Yes.
celestial kingdom.
Anyway, as far as I understand it, there's only progression inside the celestial kingdom.
Got it.
Please fact check me for the Mormons that are listening.
All two of you.
We'll do some research. Yeah, all two of you. But I think that's a problem that's a little bit. It's a blow that's a little softened from an LDS perspective because again, you get jet skis. But at the end of the day, it's still for anybody who's been separated from family. We've all got somebody we've lost. We know what that pain is. If we truly are a son and or daughter of God, then we have that kind of connection with God. The same way that you care about your kids, the same way that your kids care about you. That connection exists between you and God, but on an infinitely greater scale.
But you have to choose it though.
Your son was just born into a relationship with you.
Correct.
He can make a million choices that will put him further away from you.
Sure.
He can make a lot of choices that would separate himself from you, correct?
Absolutely.
Would it change, no matter how many of those decisions he made, would it change the loss or the pain of that loss?
From my
If
perspective
you were
or
to be
his
separated
perspective?
from either side.
Well, what I'm saying is if he's not choosing the relationship with me, I don't think he's affected by the separation the way that I'm affected by it. If I'm choosing to love him and he's choosing not to love me, I don't think he's experiencing the loss the same way I'm experiencing the loss.
Yeah, that's fair. It's definitely going to be different. I don't think that it's ever going to be. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
This is coming
It's
from a
very different from
privileged-
us because
yeah,
we came from a very tight-knit family.
Yeah,
I know people who do not give a rat's behind about their family.
yeah.
The
Well,
separation from them, they do not. They literally just adopted new family.
But would you agree that those people have had experiences and situations that have pushed them away from their parents?
Oh yeah, they got there on a path. I don't
Yeah.
think it just they woke up one day and got there.
Yeah.
But the point is at some point in time along this path of unfortunate events, they got to a point where they don't necessarily accept their family, and so separation from them doesn't bother them the way that it might bother. I'm only hearing one side of the story. For all I know, their parents are just pining for them to come home. I don't know.
That's
but
fair.
they don't
then
particularly
then
care.
let's only look at from one side of the relationship. Is there anything that he could do, no matter how far away he pushed from you, no matter how much he hated you?
From my perspective?
From your perspective.
No.
Is there anything that could happen that you could be okay cutting off that relationship for all time and eternity?
No. Okay. I would leave that door open as long as he's willing to walk through it.
Exactly. There's never a point in time where you're like, I don't care if he turns around.
Right.
Okay.
I agree with you on that one.
I think that is a godlike stance. I believe that is the way God moves.
I agree.
I don't think that changes. I don't think there's ever a point in time where God says, nope, all right, the door's shut. I think the LDS church teaches that. At bare minimum, I think we agree standard Christianity teaches that. I mean, they're teaching it without the father-son relationship. They're just saying
Final judgment,
creator.
heaven,
There is a
hell.
point in time where he is cool, cutting the tie, sending you, hey, you had the chance to pick me, you didn't. You
Mhm.
clearly chose, this was your decision. I didn't want to put you here. You chose it, but I'm fine with you being there. That is that does not ring true to me as God,
Okay.
the way
God
that
would
God would
be.
move. Yeah.
Well, let's kind of dig into. I'm going to look into this. I do believe the term eternal progression is introduced in the restored gospel. I don't know with any confidence whether or not it goes from the tiers all the way up to celestial, or if that's only within the celestial tier. I'm not confident on that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we could spend a little bit of time looking into that and touching on that on the next week's episode.
Yep.
And then we can eventually kind of get back into doctrine versus culture.
I promise one of these times we're gonna
We're gonna close
really
that.
lock in. I think the gods and the planets is a part of that doctrine versus culture, because I think there
Yeah.
is a doctrine there
Yeah.
that kind of ran with the culture.
Well, the
and so that's
doctrine
what
is
gets,
the ontology. We are the same
Yeah.
species as God. That's the doctrine. That's the kernel of truth.
Yeah.
And then from that sprouts a whole bunch of conjectures and theories
and the
and
culture that,
and culture. Planets is just one example of culture versus doctrine.
yeah.
And to be very fair, I'm not a historian. You're not a scriptorian. Our biggest form of expertise is going to be our lived experience, the
Yeah.
culture versus what we feel like the church has taught us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having that humility to be able to say, "Hey, I may have gotten this understanding of doctrine from inside the church." Like, it's not that I got this wildly from the God makers.
Yeah.
This is coming from inside the church, and it might not be 100%. You know what I mean? Like the common circulated narrative may not be the actual truth. Personally, I'm okay with that. Like, I do not see the church as, hey, they have to bat 1,000 and they have to, like, I'm okay with there being discord, but like things that aren't 100% the way that God would want us to learn them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand that happens inside the church. And actually, I've got a really good way to wrap this up. So for this Christmas, my daughter now knows
Santa's not real.
the way that she saw Santa. Okay. And I was really kind of dreading that because I was like, man, like the curtain's gonna fall. She's gonna become disillusioned with Christmas. Like for me, that was
It's a big
I
deal.
I found out because mom and dad left pistachios on the table, and there was pistachios in our stockings. I put two and two together, and I went and grilled our older sister until she told me the truth.
Really?
That's how I found out. I
That's
still
funny.
to this day remember. It was a big letdown for me. I was disappointed that Santa wasn't real.
Okay.
Right?
On a side note, I don't remember learning Santa wasn't real.
You don't?
I have no.
You have no
I
clue how you came
clue
to
how I knew.
Dude, you
how I
were
found
so
out.
weird.
Yeah. I think about that a lot because of all the kids finding out.
That's
I'm
so
like, I
wild.
genuinely have no idea. But anyway, continue.
I remember mine being very disappointing.
Mine apparently wasn't that.
Apparently wasn't that problematic.
memorable.
Or it was so traumatic that
I
you
just blocked
blocked it out. Yeah, you haven't been able to come to terms with it yet.
Genuinely.
But I was really worried that it was going to be very disappointing for my daughter. And then because she knew what I was doing behind the scenes, because like I kind of let her in on like what I was doing. She's like, "Hey, are you gonna wrap more presents tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna wrap a couple more." And hey, I've got to
She's
stay
in
up.
on the.
She's in on it, and she
Mhm.
saw how much effort I was putting into it. She saw all of the like I'm putting on Christmas for them.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really disappointing for her at all, or at least it hasn't appeared to be. I think she's really appreciated seeing behind the scenes, and like it wasn't this like, yeah, Santa's not real. Actually, I just ordered this on Amazon and I wrapped it in the Amazon box and threw it under the tree. And like it, like that lack of personal touch really, I think, kind of is like, well, I thought Santa cared. I thought he made this by hand,
Yeah.
and he's taking the time to deliver to every person out there. And like you really feel like there's somebody out there who wants you to have a good Christmas.
Mhm.
And then getting that picture shattered of like, no, mom and dad just ordered this on Amazon and wrapped it in the same, like very little effort went into it. I feel like that's the letdown. But when she saw how much effort, because I stayed up till pretty
Yeah.
late that night getting Christmas ready.
No, it's a sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice,
sure.
and especially if you do it right and your kids see how much effort you're putting into it. I don't think the blow's there. It's not that nobody cares. It's just you thought it was this guy who cared.
It's
And really,
actually us.
it was actually your best friend. Which, for the record, nobody breaks into your house in the middle of the night.
This is the net positive.
You're set. You're safe. People who genuinely care about you are the ones who went and found that gift and they set it up for you. And
Yeah.
it's just a different person who cared. And that transition's been actually beautiful to watch.
Nice.
And I almost kind of see that same concept in the church where it's like, okay, if I feel like the church has always taught me this, and then I find out that it's really that, there's a possibility that I'm going to interpret this the way Dorothy interpreted seeing Oz behind the curtain, where just all the mystery went away and it was just a schmuck behind the curtain. and the whole thing's a scam. If I have a really good foundation and a savior who loves me, a Christ who loves me, and he's trying to reach out to me and to usher me through this door in whatever way he can reach me. He will reach me where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And the tools that I have available to me, in my case, tend to be the LDS church. I was brought up in the LDS church. That's the church I return to. My neighbors are LDS. Bro, like Christ came back into my life. And even when I see things where the church may have gotten it wrong, I don't get disillusioned with the whole thing. I see it as, well, the church is different than Christ. Christ is reaching out to me. He's using these failed tools that fail time and time again. There's something that was wrong
Will
with this.
continue in the
Will
future.
continue. And you can find the failures in the past too. And they're there. But I don't get disillusioned with it because I still feel like he cares and I haven't lost that connection with him. And it's
Yeah.
allowed me to give a lot more grace to all of the tangled mess that is the religion that I'm coming back into.
And that's a really interesting. Maybe we'll have to dig into this a little bit more for the next episode too, when we're talking about doctrine versus culture. But I think that is a big part of why my generation and in previous generations, when they leave the church, they leave God
As a
entirely
whole.
as a whole, is because I think there was a point in time where the church had a bigger focus on the church than Christ. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not necessarily that, because it was always, I never went to the LDS church and got taught about the church. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like they're like, we're up there praying to Joseph Smith or the church. It's
Or
never
the
like
current
that,
prophet.
or the current prophet or anything like that. But there was such, as much as you would get taught about Christ, you would get taught about early
Fathers.
church. Yeah, they would, I'm trying to think of how to say this. I want to say this in the most generous terms possible, because I just want the spirit of what I'm trying to say to get through. But I think that there was almost as much focus on getting loyalty to the church as there was loyalty
As
to
an
Christ
established
as an
religion.
established religion.
Mhm.
And so, and building up, I think there was a lot of work on building up the church as that pinnacle of
The only true church.
Christ. Right. Well, Christ can't fall because Christ is perfect.
Right.
And I felt like there was an attempt to kind of put the church up there synonymously with Christ. And so you would kind of naturally give it the same, like it can't fall. It has to be infallible. It's synonymous with Christ, and Christ can't be wrong. So that when we saw times where the church was wrong, because there was such a buildup for
Like, well, it
the
can't
church,
be fit. It can't be wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so when it's kind of the Santa Claus, when that disillusionment happens and you see, oh, it is just some schmuck behind the curtain or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like, okay, well, I'm just leaving all of it.
Yeah.
It's almost as synonymous with Christ falling, and because that's I'll just speak for myself. That's kind of how I went through it. Of it, I never really had a shake with my belief in God, but it almost got to that point of, well, like, there's just all of it's a joke, man. You know what I mean? And I think obviously that's the culture that plays a really big role, because obviously all my friends and the anecdotal evidence that I have, we're all from Utah, so we all went through that
Same
particular experience.
That's your reality.
Yeah, and so who knows how that changes or differs for people that aren't from Utah. I'm sure it's dramatically different, but I think that I think that is something we're going to have to talk about when we're talking about culture versus the doctrine, because I think that's a big influence and a big factor on why people just walk away entirely from God with the LDS church versus the Catholic who just goes and becomes Protestant.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Totally fair. Well, that seems like a good place to cut it off for this week, and
I think so.
we can pick the conversation up again next week. Dude, good job.